G'day folks, Mark here again. I'm trying to be a shorter video. I'm going to be a little more concise rather than go through all the bits and pieces we're dealing over here with the firearms and our new act and regulations, which are a massive overreach in so many different fashions, and there's a lot for me to go on about it. But what I want to try and put forward is, I suppose, a briefer thing in a more specific way of putting things forward. In the brief nutshell of where we're at, yes, overreaching, undemocratically designed laws that have been forced upon us without consultation. And the process we're in at the moment is the government and some members of a smaller percentage of our organisations are saying it's all good. It's just the problem of getting people on the system, and that we're finding ways to making that a little bit easier. And these rules we're making it sound a little bit nicer, so we'll get you to the other side. Stop, go quiet, and we'll just get it to where it's on and it's done. The process that's in place, some of these rules are absurd and overreaches with a lot of lack of oversight. Which I want to go through and point some of that sort of stuff out a little bit more. This particular video I want to talk about is the people who are actually being more persecuted and making jump through hoops more than most of us are people with the hunting registration for properties. This is something where not the firearms owner is having to do a fair bit. And yes, we've had guns, the limits on guns, we've had all sorts of things we've got to do, but largely that's a lot easier for people who are going to competition side of things, which is part of the organisations that are pushing this forward, where it's a lot easier on that side of things. It's the hunting licenses to be able to go and actually, in some cases, own particular firearms, but in a lot of cases they're recreational hunting or our conservation side of hunting, pest control, that sort of stuff. Particularly in our rural areas, that is really in the crosshairs. And the way to get and have that sort of license is a property owner has to register their property for hunting. Now this might seem all really simple and straightforward, and of course all the people who need to do that are going to do that, so why is that a fuss? Well, it's because it's not been thought through at all. There are instances of, in our suburbia, particularly in our rural areas, our rural country towns and that sort of stuff, where the way it works is not, and it's always worked, is where there is places where firearms are needed. Nothing untoward, nothing weird. It may seem weird to the person who lives in the middle of suburbia in a nest of all sorts of mowed lawns and concrete driveways and that side of things where you don't need them. Out in country towns, well, there's all sorts of things. We live out with the animals, we live out where there is more of a need for a firearm. Not all the time, but whether it's your fruit trees that are getting torn to pieces, or it's your poultry that's getting eaten by the foxes and the cats, or you have a damaged animal that's been hit by a car, or it's in dire states and it needs to be dispatched because that's the most humane thing to do. All the different instances where even if you didn't have a firearm, and yes, there's more people that had something in a safe, not that long ago it was in a cupboard and it was harmless and did no wrong. Now it's it's all in a safe. You can still go and do that, whether it's a little 410 shotgun and blast over the fruit trees to scare the parrots off. And yes, just blasting over the fruit trees now is illegal unless your property is registered for hunting. So unless you've had the foresight to realize, even if you don't have a firearm, but you have something that needs protecting and may need protecting, the current laws, the way they're set up, is that you can't even have a need for a firearm where you could call someone up or social media ask, has someone got a firearm, come and help me with this. I've got rats that I need to get rid of over here. I don't want to use poison. I want to get rid of these rats that are hidden here. Or I've got corellas that are haranguing and tearing my trees apart, or I've got whatever it is, or there's an animal is very, very sick and it needs to be put down. I'm on the edge of town, 1 acre block. There's safe as houses to use the firearm in this sort of place. You have my permission, but unless you have the foresight and have the ability to register your property for hunting, It's no longer legal to get someone to go and do that. Someone with a simple, they have a hunting license, so they have permission from a property, so they have authority on a property to go and do that sort of stuff, so they legally own the right firearm. Because of these new laws, you cannot go to that property because it's not registered for hunting. So it means if you do, and it no doubt will happen because people want to do the right thing by the people and by the animals, but the government's got to speak in there. The government needing to give you permission, or you needing to get permission from the government just to manage your own property. Now there's laws, I'll put a thing down below as to what our government supposedly will stand for when it comes to protecting your property rights. It seems that all matters unless it's got to do with firearms, and then no, you don't really have any rights. You need to ask permission to do anything. But this gets a lot broader than that once you move out into larger parts of our land and our property in Western Australia. There are properties that both for the forestry side of things, so there's government-driven forestry and there's commercial-driven forestry, but there's also the net zero targets, or properties that are bought for carbon credits. Now, people don't realise this, but even the market government pledged $350 million. There's also corporations that do this, that buy farming properties, stations and farming properties, which they buy to use for carbon credits. Now, how's that work? Listen, the net zero thing, that's another whole can of worms, but the basics of this is how this largely operates, is that it's bought, the property's bought, and then it's defarmed. So all the livestock, if there's any livestock, all the machinery, all that sort of stuff is got rid of off that property. If there's infrastructure in that property, sheds, dams, whatever it is, that's destroyed. And then it's basically let grow wild. The problem with that is, to the vast majority of that sort of property, it doesn't have, or does it have the ability to have a hunting permission. What that effectively turns into, I'm sure that there's people who say, greenies or people who think they know about conversations, that's great, so no one can shoot any of that property, so it's exactly how it should be. Here's the problem. What our hunters do and what our conservationists do is hunt the ferals. So the cats, the foxes, the pigs, the goats, the deer, the animals that shouldn't be here, that do devastate our native flora and fauna, well, they have then been given a sanctuary, a place where you cannot hunt on there. So there are specific licenses given to a very small group that can do that sort of thing, but they largely are way outnumbered and largely are a bit like a government of the government resources, very inefficient at what they do. The main people who control that sort of situation, apart from the mess of defarming and the mess that we're actually creating without managing that thing in so many other ways, there is the fact of getting a hunting license to do that. In some cases, even people that have the responsibility, where they'll be on a station and they have a responsibility to do this side of things, is they're not providing, in a lot of cases, not providing a hunting permission or the ability to get a hunting permission for that property. So what we're actually creating is feral sanctuaries, where we actually have, where the ferals can actually thrive, can grow. They can obviously scoot over the fence and go and do a whole heap of devastation out there in places where there is a hunting permission, but it's not that simple, because they can also scurry back over the fence. So we actually have what turns into, as much as in some places there's large properties, in some places there's small properties all over the place, which are then feral sanctuaries. A really, really dangerous oversight that's been put forward by what our government's done. There's also lots of land that doesn't fall into the very narrow parameters, which is privately owned land, but whether it has a dual ownership or whether it has it gets complicated when the difference between how a property is registered with or owned by someone and how landmarks owned it. And if that doesn't match up in places, then trying to get hunting permission is very, very hard. Now, in the way of the main place that our government, our police see there's an issue is, well, they see an issue, you just can't get it done, so it doesn't matter. But there is a level of, okay, that's a problem for registering a hunter, so that's important for the shooters. But for our conservationists, for our native flora and fauna, it's a massive issue once again, because we have these places where the ferals can thrive. And yes, the ferals are a big issue over here. Our main issue with the feral population is the devastation, and our main, in the way of both, whether it's our native flora or fauna, whether it's the pigs and the goats, or whether it's the cats and the foxes, they're ripping this country apart, this country of ours apart. The main thing that held them back was our recreational hunter. Terrible, terrible term, but they were the main stop. The government does it in the government fashion. They'll use 100 times as much money with helicopters and semi-automatic firearms and all things that we're not even vaguely allowed to touch. They'll use that, but they don't have the numbers. They spend 10 times as much doing it, whereas largely that was a free service that our recreational hunters provided for our Western Australia, not for our government, for our Western Australia. They do it as both a sense of responsibility, but also as something that they enjoy to go and do that. It makes them feel better to have done something good for our country, in the way for our land, our flora and fauna. Well, they are the ones that are mainly being limited. And now, when it comes down to it, it's not just by the fact they can't get a hunting license, is that property we're talking about, too much of our Western Australia can't get on the system. I don't believe it's done maliciously. I don't believe that our police minister and our police hierarchy, our government, have decided they want to throw that under the bus. I believe it's simply out of the process of a very short-sighted, a lack of consultation, a lack of understanding what happens when you get a government department that has a single-minded focus, that is simply not smart enough, not experienced enough, and didn't involve the community in writing rules. Means you end up with devastation. And where this goes, it's not going to, as if anyone who's paying attention to the numbers realizes, that we're on a very short path. I think if we are waiting even till the next election, so 4 years away, 3.5 years away, even if we're just waiting till that long, when this thing's gone through, listen, a year of this sort of damage, when it's in full swing, it's in pretty heavy swing now, but when this gets in full swing, whenever people realise that it's illegal to go over to those places completely, I can't do these sort of things. So just in 6 months' time, when the laws are all the way in, then all of a sudden the ferals are really going to run amok. Then we've got to a place, not that they're doing badly right now, but times that by 10 in 2 years' time. We're going to have irreparable damage if we haven't already created it. It's very important that we wake up the real conservationists, well, the people who think they are, the green side of things. We wake up people to how much damage is coming, because we revert back to those rules and we can go back to doing these things. We should be doing that so that we can at least have a stopgap to, okay, you want to write new rules, let's do that. But this stupid overreach on actually trying to control the number of firearms by controlling property, by taking away property owners' rights, is what we're actually doing. And actually who have done the biggest people or entity that's been thrown under the bus is native Western Australia. The animals, the plants, the things that are Western Australia that didn't come here at all, they've been here for millions of years. Well, those are the things that are being devastated most. They're the thing that's getting no care. And I believe as West Australians, we should do a better job than that. Anyway, I've got a lot more things I want to talk about that side of things. There are lots of things, from the ridiculous thing of accepting the amount of numbers we've got, from these ridiculous little sweeteners that are coming forward, and the groups that are claiming victories where in actual fact it's just a little look over here. This is something good, while I still am taken flat out from me over here. The distractions, the divisions, the things that are being created. A lot more to talk about, but that's that one there. The property rights and the way we've written these laws, which is definitely huge implications for so much in the future. Please wake up, everyone, and wake up your neighbour. This really matters. We need to push back against this. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for checking in. I hope you liked the video. We'll catch you next time.